And we decided, once we added this, we wound up with a chip in the floor and a squishy floorboard.
Oh yeah, I saw it move. Well, it looks like you got someone tried to patch this area right here. I got a silly question. Would you happen to have that chip?
We do.
You do? Wow.
We weren't sure what to do with it and hoping to be able to fix the floor at some point.
Well, let's see how it fits. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's nice. I can glue that right in there, and I'll show you how to do that. And we can fix that, but it'll be a little different way. Let me get some tools and we can get started.
Great, thank you.
Okay, now before I glue the chip back in, I want to refasten this floor back down to the subfloor. So I want to try to do this without seeing the fastener. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a drill and I'm going to drill a hole right through the chipped out piece and then drive a screw in there. Now we're going to use a polyurethane glue, and what I want to do is I actually want to put some water in the hole because that will make the glue activate better, not only for the wood but for the screw. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is take some of the glue and drive it into the hole. That's running down there, which is good. Take my screw, put it into the hole, into the wet glue, and drive it down. That stopped the floor from moving.
That's great.
Now I use the polyurethane glue in the hole because it will expand on itself. It'll also glue the screw to the wood. But I'm going to use just a carpenter's glue or a wood glue. And I want to try to get it in there to cover all of the raw wood. I'm going to slide it in. Push it down, and take a wet rag. I want to wipe off all the excess because I don't want it to show.
That's incredible. It's as good as new.
It's good as new, so I'll just hold that down for a little bit till the glue starts to set, and then we can work on the next one. All right, now we're going to patch this section of the floor right here, but it's going to be patched a completely different way. Because there's so much damage, I have to cut out this section of the floor and insert a Dutchman. Now a Dutchman will sit on a mortise that doesn't go all the way through the board, creates a shelf that a thin piece of your flooring will sit on. Now, when you're trying to patch a floor, it's important that you have the same kind of wood, and luckily you saved some of the flooring that was left over in the basement. You first want to match the grain, not the stain. So if you look at the grain of the floor right here, it's nice and tight and it's darker. And it's opened up a little bit here and really opened up here. So what I did is I looked at your boards and I cut out a section that has a tight grain to it right here. So when I look at that grain, it's similar to the grain right here. If I turn the board over, this is an open grain and that patch would really stand out. Now when I stain this, it's not going to stain exactly the same. It never does. So what I'm going to do is I want to cut our Dutchman out of this piece right here. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tongue off and true up this one edge. So I've straightened out that edge with my plane, and now I want to make the strip about 1 inch to 1.25 inches wide. Okay. So eyeball that, and make a straight line. Okay, so now I've got a rough cut there, and I want to true that up with my plane. That's better. Now what I want to do is I want to try to make it thinner.
Okay.
So I'm going to rip it down this way and make it thinner.
That might be the best thing I see all day.
Really? All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to true this up. See how it's uneven?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to put a straight edge on this side,
Okay.
straight line to follow here, and the same thing on the other side, like that.
Okay.
Now I'm going to take my plane and try to make the board equal in thickness.
Okay.
All right, I've cut my Dutchman to rough size,
Okay.
width, thickness, and squared one end.
Okay, that's impressive.
Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to get a length for my Dutchman. So I look at the damaged section of the floor and see about how far it goes, and I'm going to go just a little bit further, and I'm going to mark the length.
So
around
you measure that first? You
All
don't
right.
measure the floor?
Nope, I'm going to cut the patch to size. Once I cut the patch to size, I'll lay it on the floor over the damaged section, trace it, and mortise out the floor.
Okay.
Lightly score it. Cut my length also, mark that. I'm going to need to remove this section of the floor and down almost the thickness of this piece. Now I could chisel it all out, but what I'm going to do first to save a little time is I'm actually going to use a Forstner bit, which actually leaves a flat bottom at the bottom. All right, so the mortise is cut.
Okay.
Now that it's cut, I want to see if my piece fits in it. And it's going to go in like this, because that's how I cut it. Now that fits tight. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to plane just a little bit off of one edge, because I want it to slide into that opening.
Okay.
So I want to pitch it slightly to bevel it so that when it goes in the hole, it'll be loose at the bottom but tight at the top. I'm going to drop it into the hole.
Look at that. That's incredible.
It's pretty good.
Oh, it's beautiful.
All right, now before I glue it, I want to take it out and put some stain on it, because if I get glue on top of the surface here, the stain won't take.
Okay.
All right, so I have to take the piece out. All right, when you have soft wood like this pine, it's always good to use a pre-stainer, so that way the stain will be more balanced when it's on top of the surface. All right, it's been about 5 minutes, and now we'll wipe on some stain. Wipe it on, put it on a little bit heavy. And we'll just let that set on there for a few minutes. See, if I leave a little bit of it with the texture of the rag, I actually put a little bit of a grain in
Oh,
it.
that looks great.
Okay. And I just want to get the sides and the bottom of the raw wood all covered. All right, so we've got all our raw wood covered with glue. And now we're going to set our Dutchman in the mortise. Push it in, make it flush.
That looks great.
Thanks. Now we'll take a damp rag and wipe off the excess glue. All right, Manny, your patch is in and it's all stained. What do you think?
It's absolutely incredible. If I didn't know it was there, I would have to look really hard to find it.
Well, that's a good thing. All right, that's all we can do today.
Okay.
Now what has to happen, the stain has to dry overnight.
Okay.
Next thing I want you to do is tape around the border of it with some painter's tape and then put about 2 or 3 coats of poly on it.
Okay.
Remove the tape and it should blend right in.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.